What if you could send money to anyone in the world without needing a bank and have a record of that transaction that's tamper-proof? This is the promise of Bitcoin, but how does it actually work? Imagine you're trying to send money to a friend who lives in another country. Normally, you'd use a bank or a service like PayPal, and they take a fee for facilitating the transaction. But with Bitcoin, you can do it directly without any middleman. The idea is that Bitcoin is like a digital cash system where transactions are recorded on a public ledger called the blockchain. And here's the surprising part. This blockchain is maintained by a network of computers all around the world, working together to verify and record every single transaction. It's like a big digital accounting book where every entry is time-stamped and linked to the previous one, making it virtually impossible to alter or cheat. But how does this actually happen? How do these computers work together to create this tamper-proof record? And what's to stop someone from just manipulating the system? Let's take a closer look at the mechanics of Bitcoin and find out how it really works. Vocabulary: blockchain, cryptocurrency, decentralized, ledger. Okay, so now we're diving into the heart of what makes Bitcoin tick. Let's imagine you have a really special notebook. This isn't just any ordinary notebook. It's a digital ledger book where every page is filled with transactions. And once a page is full, it's locked and linked to the previous page, creating a chain of pages. This is essentially the blockchain. Imagine each transaction as a piece of information written on a page. Every time someone sends or receives Bitcoin, that transaction gets written down in this notebook. But here's the cool part. Once a page is full, all the transactions on that page get locked for good. They can't be altered or erased. They're permanently recorded. Then, when you start to fill up the next page, it's not just any old page. You link it securely to the previous one. Think of it like a chain necklace where each bead is a transaction page. The first page is linked to the second to the third, and so on. This makes sure that every transaction has a secure place in history. Because all these pages are chained together, if someone tries to change something in an earlier page, they'd have to go back and manually change not just one page, but all of them. It's like trying to rewrite a whole chapter in a book that's locked and linked to the rest. This makes the blockchain incredibly secure. Here's the surprising part. Because this notebook is distributed across many computers around the world, nobody can control it. It's like having a giant library where everyone has their own copy of this notebook. If one person tries to cheat, they have to convince everyone else in the library that their version is right. That's why Bitcoin transactions are so secure and transparent. What if the entire Bitcoin network relied on a decentralized group of volunteers to validate transactions and keep the ledger up to date? This is exactly how Bitcoin works, and it's done through a process called mining. Imagine a giant, global puzzle competition where powerful computers are constantly trying to solve complex mathematical problems. These computers, known as miners, are scattered all around the world and are connected to the Bitcoin network. As transactions are made, they're grouped into a batch called a block, and miners compete to solve a puzzle that validates this block of transactions. The first miner to solve the puzzle gets to add the block to the ledger, known as the blockchain, and is rewarded with brand new Bitcoins. But here's the surprising part. This process not only validates transactions, it also secures the network by making it extremely difficult for anyone to alter the ledger. The puzzles are so complex that they require enormous computational power, which means that any attempt to manipulate the ledger would require an impractically large amount of energy and resources. And that's what makes the Bitcoin network so secure. As we dive deeper into how Bitcoin works, we'll explore more about the intricacies of mining and its role in the network. But for now, it's clear that this decentralized approach is a fundamental part of what makes Bitcoin tick. And here's the surprising part. Miners aren't the only essential players in the Bitcoin ecosystem. There are also nodes, which are like the librarians of the blockchain. Think of them as the keepers of the truth, ensuring that every page or block of transactions is accurate and up to date. Imagine a giant library where everyone's bookshelves contain copies of their financial history. Now, imagine that whenever someone buys or sells something, they update their own bookshelf with the new information. But to make sure all the books are consistent across the entire library, you need librarians to check each shelf and ensure the updates match what's already there. That's exactly what nodes do in Bitcoin. They continuously download the latest version of the blockchain. This is like keeping everyone's bookshelves up to date. When a miner successfully validates a block of transactions, they send it out to various nodes around the world. These nodes then check if the block meets all the rules and if it correctly references the previous block in the chain. And here's why this matters. By having multiple nodes verifying each block, Bitcoin ensures that no single entity can cheat or manipulate the system. This is called a distributed ledger, meaning there isn't one central authority controlling everything. Instead, it's a network of people and machines working together to maintain the integrity of the blockchain. Now, you might ask, but what if some nodes are bad actors? Well, that's why the decentralized nature of Bitcoin is so powerful. Because even if a few nodes aren't keeping their books up to date or aren't following the rules, there are still plenty of honest nodes out there to catch any discrepancies and correct them. All right, so now we know about miners and how they keep the network safe by solving complex puzzles. But how does all of this actually come together when you want to send some Bitcoin? Let's dive into that. Imagine you're at a bustling market where everyone is buying and selling goods. You just decided to sell an apple for 1 Bitcoin. Let's call it BTC. Before the transaction can happen, your offer needs to be broadcasted to all the vendors in the market, the nodes if we're talking about Bitcoin. So here's what happens. When you decide to send some BTC to a friend, your computer broadcasts that information to every node on the network. It's like shouting, "I'm selling an apple for 1 BTC," so everyone can hear it and possibly jump in as buyers or sellers. Now, once this transaction reaches the nodes, they check if the rules are being followed. They make sure you actually have enough BTC to send, no counterfeiting allowed, and that no one is trying to double spend their coins, like trying to sell the same apple twice. If everything checks out, your transaction is confirmed as valid. And here's the surprising part. Miners then get involved, but not just any miner. They're like the referees of this market, ensuring fairness and security. Miners take all these transactions from different people, bundle them together into a group called a block, and then they compete to solve a very complex mathematical puzzle. The first miner to solve it gets rewarded with some BTC and also gets to add your transaction, and others, to the blockchain, a permanent record of all Bitcoin transactions. This process is what makes Bitcoin transactions so secure. Once your transaction is added to the blockchain, it's nearly impossible to change or reverse. It's like adding a new leaf to a tree that grows taller each day. Every confirmation adds another layer of security and immutability to the transaction. So, when you send BTC, it goes through this network of nodes, checks its validity, then miners race to confirm it by solving puzzles. Once confirmed, your transaction becomes as permanent as adding a new block to the blockchain itself. So, to answer our initial question, how does Bitcoin actually work? Well, it's like a giant digital ledger book that no single person or group controls. This is achieved through a decentralized network of miners and nodes. Imagine you're in a big room filled with people, each holding a piece of paper with a record of who owns what coins. Whenever someone wants to send Bitcoin, they announce it to the whole room. The network then checks if the sender has enough coins and updates everyone's papers accordingly. This is done using complex cryptography, which is like a super secure code that ensures transactions are legitimate and can't be tampered with. Now, here's the surprising part. This process isn't just about moving money around. It's also about maintaining a secure and transparent system where no one can cheat or steal. Every transaction is verified by multiple nodes in the network, making it incredibly resilient against fraud. And that's how Bitcoin works under the hood, through a community of people working together to keep the ledger accurate. This system ensures that even if some nodes fail, others will step up to keep things running smoothly. So there you have it. By understanding these basics, not only do we know how transactions are made and confirmed, but we also see why Bitcoin is so revolutionary. It's a new way of storing and transferring value outside the traditional banking system. If you're like, wow, I never knew that, that's exactly what I wanted to convey. And if this has sparked your interest, there's much more to explore in how markets and cryptocurrencies work. Why not subscribe for more insights? It's not just about Bitcoin. We'll dive into other fascinating topics too.